Hey guys, what's happening? Marion Carlin here, and I am elated and I'm honored and I'm excited and I'm humbled to be able to share with you and give my experience with you on what it really takes to have a powerful marriage and relationship. The number one thing it takes to be able to have a powerful marriage and relationship, and I say this to couples, I've said this to at least every bit of over 5,000 couples over 10 years, which is 10,000 people, 5,000 couples, that the key to a powerful, healthy marriage is a couple who knows how to communicate, and not only communicate, but argue in love. The reason why you are listening to me right now is I know that you are thinking a couple of things, three things that you're thinking. You're thinking about exiting your relationship, you're thinking about separating from your married spouse, or you're even contemplating divorce. And what I want to say to you is truly that you probably have already married the right person. Right now it doesn't feel that way because the number one component to why we marry who we marry, not only by geographical location, okay, because that's a high statistic too, that people marry people that are in their same level of geographical location, but people marry people who make them feel good. You see, when you first married your spouse, the reason why you fell in love with your spouse was because how she or he made you feel. How witty they were, how intelligent they were, how attractive they were, but all of that encompassed how they made you feel about you. Not necessarily how you were making them feel about them, but you fell in love with them because how they made you feel about you. And right now you don't feel that way anymore. And the reason why you don't feel that way anymore is you have lost the ability to communicate emotionally with your spouse. Now, experience tells me that if you're listening to me, someone is getting your emotional need and someone is getting your emotional intelligence. Someone is getting your vulnerability. Right now, if it's not your wife, husbands, and I'm not saying that you're having an affair. I'm not calling you out there just yet. I'm saying that the person that you're talking to and you're sharing emotional need with real vulnerability right now, if you're contemplating leaving your spouse, contemplating separating, contemplating leaving, divorcing, even thinking about divorcing your spouse, thinking about terminating this relationship, is because you don't feel like you are definitely in love with them anymore. And you damn sure probably don't feel like you love them anymore. And you definitely don't feel like probably that they even love you, because the need for emotional intelligence and vulnerability have been broken. And they've been broken for a lot of reasons. Now, guys, this doesn't happen overnight. This happens from years and issues not being resolved, being swept under the rug when you try to resolve an issue and a problem and you just didn't know how to break through because your ego and your vulnerability and the intimacy of who you really were, it was damaged. And guess what you did, wives? And guess what you did, husbands? You protected yourself and you put your armor on. So when you do that, every time that there's not emotional intimacy, guys, that's really happening, real levels of vulnerability and communication with your spouse, you're adding to the detriment of separating more. But guess what, guys? That's not what you want. But you don't know how to get to the place to let all that hurt to the side, to begin to look at your spouse from a clean slate. Wives, right now, you're not looking at your husbands from a clean slate. And husbands, you're not looking at your wives from a clean slate. You once did, because you had emotional intimacy with your spouse, with your wife, or with your husband in the very beginning. Well, Marion, what's that? That was that emotional vulnerability that when you first started dating, outside of when you guys thought each other were so hot and so attractive and so witty and so funny. But the reason why you respected one another was the ability that they were able to share with you who they really were. And then you saw an amazing person because you saw their vulnerability. You saw an amazing person and you fell in love with an amazing person because they gave you their vulnerability. What was that vulnerability? Well, the vulnerability from 0 to 5, from 5 to 10, when they told you about how kids picked on them in grade school, or they talked about that they were the tallest kid or the skinniest kid or the shortest kid or the fattest kid, whatever. Kids are just mean. All those things. And then that led to middle school. How they necessarily did fit in middle school or they didn't fit in middle school, and that led to high school and how girls made them feel and how girls made girls feel and how guys made boys feel and how we were trying to be socially cool and we were socially inept, and all that vulnerability, it led to college, careers, jobs, successes, failures, emotional intimacy was going on, and they gave you their vulnerability. And the more that you give someone your vulnerability, the more intimacy is created. And you've even forgotten how to have a conversation with your spouse like that because you're so angry. The reason why you're listening to me right now is because you're angry. And not only that you're angry, what you really are is that you're hurt. And you're hurt because you don't feel understood. And you're angry because the person that should understand you the most is your significant other, is your husband, is your wife, and they're the least favorable person to you at this point right now. So wives and husbands, what do? You pretend. What do? You stay busy with the kids. What do? You spend time with work and everything else to necessarily you're living with one another, but you're not really spending time with one another. And everything that would bring you guys to the point and the time to have emotional intimacy, you're not even going to go there. So you go through the motions. You'd rather see a movie and you'd rather go out to dinner and talk about the kids than to talk about real issues, because you don't believe anymore that anything is going to get resolved because both of you have your armor up. He's not going to hurt me anymore. She's not going to hurt me anymore. I say this to couples all the time, and it's what men need more than anything from their wives. And I'll state that because it's the truth. Men need to feel esteemed from their wives, and husbands and men, you know what wives need? They need to feel redeemed. The reason why women talk to women so much and they stop talking to us, because women sometimes, 9 times out of 10, they redeem each other. They redeem each other because they listen to one another. Do you know when the best time, women, to get a man's attention, and the best time that he will be able to really, really listen to you, and he